This is my grandfather, Phil Darnell, my mom's dad, and he was born in 1939. He joined the Air Force in 1959 when he was just 20 years old. When I asked him what two events shaped his life the most, the first event that he described was when he got married to my grandmother, Teddy Darnell. This story is very interesting because it spans over many years and over many states. In the late 40s when they were kids, they met in Tucson, Arizona because both their dads were stationed there in the Air Force. They met again in 1962 while my grandfather and his family were on vacation in Denver, where my grandmother and her family lived. And this is where my grandfather recalls first being interested in my grandmother, when they hung out at the lake together. A few years later, my granddad was stationed in Washington, D.C., and my grandma was going there for an event, so he asked if he could pick her up from the airport and take her there, and she said yes. Because of their different schedules and long distance, my grandfather says they couldn't really date, but he loved getting to see her when he could. Then their paths crossed again in 1966 in New Orleans, right before my grandpa was going to be sent to Vietnam, and he just couldn't wait anymore. He asked my grandmother to marry him, and she said yes. However, they wanted to wait for him to come back from the war. Unfortunately, my grandpa found out his next station would be Japan. So while he was on leave, he flew to Hawaii, and my grandmother met him, and they were married in an Air Force chapel on June 11, 1967. For my grandfather, he says that this was one of the best days of his life, because he married the love of his life, and they could finally be together after years of running around the country to see each other. I'm glad my granddad married her because she was one of the most Christian and kind-hearted women I've ever met. She would also teach our family how to bake whenever she visited, and her handwritten cookbook is still a treasure in our family. The second event that my grandfather recalled was sadly the death of my grandmother. He said this reshaped his whole entire life because he lost the woman he loved the most on March 22nd, 2012, a day after my mom's birthday. He said he had to learn to live his life without her next to him. He also said that the transition was hard, but the family made it go smoother for him. I remember going to visit him every summer after this had happened, so that we could be there for him and give him company. While losing my grandmother was hard for all of us in the family, this event led to me getting closer to my grandfather and growing a new appreciation of him. I wouldn't have been there to hear so many of his stories and learn about what life was like growing up when he did and what it was like in the war, and I'm glad I got to have those moments with him.